Now I'd like to take a few moments to go through array creation and some of the common methods we can use for arrays. We showed you some of these in the slides. Now you're going to get to see them in action. So I'm going to run my test project here. And we've got a breakpoint on the first part, which is single dimension array creation. If I step into this method, you're going to see that we're going to create a single dimensional array of integers that has 3 elements in it. So as I step through this code, I want you to watch my local windows down here. You'll notice that the numbers variable is currently null. Again, arrays are a reference type, just like classes, so the default value is always null. Once we instantiate it with the new keyword, you will see that that type becomes an integer with 3 elements. We can populate the 3 elements by their indexes, 0, 1, and 2. If I open the numbers window, you can see that immediately after instantiating the object, all the values are set to 0, because 0 is the default for an integer. And as I step through the code, you can watch the values change down in the locals window. 100, 200, 300. Now I can use a for loop. I can start at the 0 index, and I can loop until it becomes equal to the length of the numbers array. The length is 3. The index stops at 2. So by using the less than instead of less than or equal to, we'll make sure that we stop in the right spot. And as this loops through, we can go back to our console window, and you can see that it printed out all 3 values that were put into the array. Continuing onward, we'll press enter to continue. And the next method is auto-initializing arrays. And when this one pops open, I'm going to show you how we can initialize arrays in line. In the first example, we initialized it by element. We did each element one at a time. But what I'd like to demonstrate to you is that we can actually initialize an array in the same statement that creates it. So here we've got a string array, which is set to a new string array object, and then I put curly braces and I just comma delimited some data. This statement is the equivalent of putting data in elements one at a time. It will put the string 1 into the first element of the array, 2 into the second element, and 3 into the third element. And I'm just going to print out the length of this array so that you can see that it actually did initialize the array with 3 elements as it should have. And there it is. We don't always need to use the new keyword. We can actually just declare an array and set it equal to curly braces and a list of values. That will work as well. So you can see we create 3 booleans in an array. And when we print out the length of that array, it is 3, and the data inside that array has been set to false, false, true, which is the order that we put the data in. You can actually mix and match these. You can say new, give it a size, and then put your curly braces in your data. You just have to be careful that the number of data elements exactly matches the size of the array that you told it would be. Carrying onward, we'll go to our next method, pressing enter to continue. Next, I want to show you how arrays work with methods. And the nice thing is, arrays as method parameters and return values, they work like any other type of variable. So I have a method here called arrays and methods, and I'm going to demonstrate arrays as parameters and return values. So here is a list of ages. I put in the ages 20, 22, 23, and 0. And I wrote a method called printArrayElements, and I'm going to pass the ages array to the method. down here in the method signature, my parameter is of a type int array. The only thing I want you to notice is that when you pass an array into a method as a parameter, you don't have to provide a size. The size is declared when you initially create an array. Anytime you pass it around, you don't have to worry about it otherwise. So let's continue stepping through this code. It's going to print the array elements. It passes the array in, and it loops through, and it's going to print out each item in the array, of which there were 4. Checking our console window, there they are. For my next example, I am going to return an array from a method. And in this case, I set the return type to an int array. Again, I did not specify the size of the array. We only do that when we declare the array. And here I created a list of numbers from 1 to 5. So as we jump into that method, it's going to return that data, and it's going to store it in this numbers variable. Both of these variables are named numbers. That is okay. Whenever we declare a variable inside a method, that variable only exists inside that method. It's called scope. It's perfectly fine. This numbers variable and this numbers variable are 2 different memory locations. Again, I can take this data, I can pass it to the print method, and we'll print out all 5 of those numbers. And you'll see that there they are. Let's continue onward. The next method, I'm going to show you a couple useful things inside the array class itself. So down here, I declared a list of all the vowels in the English alphabet, except for Y, because it doesn't count sometimes. I can loop through and print the vowels, just as I have any other time. And we'll have A, E, I, O, and U. The array class has a method on it called reverse. I can pass my array of vowels into the array reverse method, and it's going to put them in reverse order. So now I'm going to print them again. And you're going to see that it printed them backwards. Array.reverse physically changes the order of the array. If we wanted to print the array in reverse but not change the order, we could do a for loop starting at the length -1, going down to 0, I minus minus. That's how you would reverse an array without actually changing the physical order. It's a common technique. In fact, if you go interview as a developer, a lot of companies like to ask you to reverse a string. And you can treat strings just like arrays, which we're going to learn in a different lesson. And you can basically write a for loop to just loop the string from back to front. The next thing I did is I used the length property of the array just to demonstrate once again that it tells us how many elements are in the array. The alphabet has 5 vowels.